Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the MetaStellar YouTube channel. My name is Maria KOROLOV, and I'm the editor here at MetaStellar. And I've got a green screen today, so hopefully my shoulders aren't going to keep disappearing. All right. So I'm here to tell you about that the free best-selling speculative fiction book on Amazon today it's about a space colony out on an exoplanet. So it's very exciting. It's the second time that book has been on our list, and it was also the #1 book on the Amazon free science fiction and fantasy list when it was up before as well, back in 2021. And not only that, but it's a box set of 3 books. So great deal if you love space exploration and space colonies. But before we get into that, we have 9 other books to get through on today's top 10 list. You see, every single Friday, the team here at MetaStellar reads the first few chapters of every book on that list. Today, I was helped out by news editor Alex KOROLOV, assistant fiction editor TERRENCE Smith, and community members Rommel Madre and Carla Nordlund. And Terrence is here with me today. Hey, Terrence.
Hello.
Actually, I think you're like that way when the thing airs. All right, so I hope you had a good week and a good Valentine's Day.
Well, it was certainly busy Valentine's Day, like not for like romantic reasons. It was just kind of a hectic day in general.
Yeah, me too. I've been writing a lot about artificial intelligence and ChatGPT. Oh, which reminds me, we are opening our spring submission cycle for original fiction on March 1st. So if you have a short story of less than 1,200 words, you can submit it to us. We pay 8 cents a word. And we do accept AI-assisted writing because we figured that really you can't beat it. You might as well join it kind of situation. So robot overlords, we love you. Don't kill us.
Kill
Okay.
all humans.
Yeah, so yeah, feel free to use artificial intelligence to write your story, but just make sure that it's a good story. We don't want something that reads like a Wikipedia summary of a children's story, which is what the AIs tend to produce at first draft. So yeah, we don't want that. That's just gonna right into the reject pile. Okay, so since it was Valentine's Day, just so you folks out there know, both Terrence and I are single, and we live in Western Massachusetts. So if there's any nerds out there, hey, hit us up. All right.
No, you do not want to date me. I am
And this
undateable.
is why Terrence is single. Okay, he's a perfectly nice guy who's into video games and science fiction books and comic books. I mean, that's in right now. Everybody wants that, right? Okay. Oh, and he's got an art degree, so he's also has the soul of a tortured artist, right? Right? Girls dig that stuff. No? Yes?
I'm more tortured than artists these days.
All right. Okay, so let's get to the books. All right, here's book number 10 on today's list. Let me bring it up so it's a little bigger on the screen. There we go. Magic Claimed by Charmaine Ross, the first of 3 books in the Cursed Shifters Reverse Harem Paranormal Romance series. The other books are $5 each, and they're not in Kindle Unlimited. The 3rd book isn't out yet, but it's scheduled to be released in July, and you can pre-order it. So Carla read this, and she says that this book is set 1,000 years in the future, and there's a ruthless dystopian society ruled by the Six, and our protagonist, Seraphine, is at the bottom of the pecking order, and she's enslaved.
Question.
Yeah?
Why are stories set in the future always dystopian? Why can't we have a more positive vision, like something to
Well,
aspire towards.
I totally agree with you. And I personally love stories with a positive vision of the future. And that's kind of like what I go for with my books. But I think we also need some dystopian books so we can watch out for things. So we're prepared and, make plans to avoid, that future. So I guess there's room for both. And some people like reading depressing, horrible, scary stuff. I don't know. I don't know why, but they do. Good for them. All right. So let's go back to the book. Seraphine is a slave, and she is owned by Asati, one of the rulers of this society, and she has the ability to regenerate, so she can never die. And her owner is constantly experimenting on her and doing unspeakable horrors to her. So she's sent out on an abusive mission into a storm that would kill most humans, and she's attacked by people while she's on a mission, and she runs to the dubious safety of the territory of a wolf shifter pack. She tries not to get too far in, staying at the edge, hoping to avoid detection, but she's found almost immediately and surrounded by the wolf pack. And when the leader grabs her, they're both immediately pulled into a soul bond, as happens to every protagonist in every book whenever she meets a werewolf, apparently. So despite the soul bond, she's desperate to return back because she wants to avoid punishment, and the werewolf leader thinks that she is a spy. So Carla says that if you like this fated mate trope, multiple partners, paranormal shifter characters, this is shaping up to be an engaging read, and it's very interesting world building. Usually these kinds of books are set in the present day, so the dystopian setting is pretty new. Carla says she was a little ambivalent in the first few chapters, but now that the setup is out of the way, she's getting more and more drawn into the story. So Seraphine winds up with 3 different shifter partners, and there's conflicts between all of them, and they have different goals, and she's interested in how all these multiple layers of conflict and tension will play out. So she says she's hooked, and it's on her weekend reading list. Next, we have A Magic Touch by Ward Parker, the first of 9 books in the Memory Guild Urban Fantasy series. The other books are $3 to $7 each, but they're all in Kindle Unlimited. So Kindle Unlimited, if you don't know, and I say this every single Free Friday, it's you pay $10 a month and you read as many books as you want that are in Kindle Unlimited. And a lot of books are. I think most of the books on the Amazon bestseller science fiction and fantasy bestseller list are in Kindle Unlimited. It's a fantastic deal. A lot of brand name books are on there too, like all the Harry Potter books and so on. So if you do read more than 2 or 3 books a month, this is definitely a deal for you. And I am a subscriber. So I'm not necessarily a big fan of Amazon, but I do love getting a lot of books for $10 a month. Okay, so this book has been on our list before, and the author has had other books on the list before. It's a cozy, magical mystery kind of series of books. I read all of these books, and I've read the other series by the author as well. So highly recommend them. So I first reviewed it in last September, and since then I've read all the books by this author. So I love urban fantasy and cozy paranormal mysteries, right up there with military sci-fi and space operas. So I was totally the target audience for this book. And the protagonist is an adult, not an annoying teenager. So no teenage drama, which I heartily appreciate. And so the story is that Darla is returning to her hometown in San Marcos, Florida, in order to run an inn after a divorce. She wants to be closer to her mother and her 24-year-old daughter. And she just bought a 285-year-old inn and plans to turn it into a bed and breakfast. Also, she's a telepath. And so is her mom and her grandmother. And maybe her daughter. Nobody knows yet. So great premise. There's a fun mystery. She finds a body a day after she gets into town. And when she touches a bronze figurine that was near it, she gets a vision of the murder, because that was the murder weapon. So cool premise. I love the characters. It's super cozy. It's very friendly. Everyone is just fun to read, and the banter is great. I love these books. Very light, very fun. Next, we have The Beast Hunters by Christer Lende. The first of 3 books in a Beast Hunter of Ashburn epic fantasy series. This is billed as The Witcher meets Sherlock Holmes, and it won the Indies Today Award for Best Fantasy last year. The other books are $3 each, but they're all in Kindle Unlimited. And the second book, by the way, is free today as well. So if you like this kind of books, pick it up. So I do like The Witcher, and I also like detective stories. So I'm the target audience for this book, and I'm the one who read this, and I loved it. So even though it starts out with a teenager, because I hate the young people. So Era is a teenager. She's 17. Her parents are pretty abusive. Her dad, it just beats her up and blames her for her sister's death, and she's forced to work super hard and isn't fed enough. And then one day her dad's attacked by a monster, and the monster kills him and her mother, but people come and save her just before the monster turns on her as well. And because she was able to wound the monster in this fight, they are impressed by her abilities, and since she's an orphan, they take her with them on their trip. So there are 2 monster hunters or beast hunters that are accredited by the local government to chase down and kill beasts, and they're paid to do this. They paid a bounty for every magical beast they kill. And this city and this country are filled with these fantasy creatures. It's kind of a fantasy setting, a medieval kind of fantasy setting. Although one of the beast hunters has a pistol, but it's just been invented, and they travel on horseback. And most people have swords instead of, nobody else has a gun. So I love the world building. I love the banter between the 2 guys. And I love the way that Ada starts out being very shell-shocked and beaten down, and kind of gains confidence as she goes along. So the first 3 chapters move a little slowly. After that first big battle with the beast, they're just traveling through the countryside, going from the city to the next town over. But I like the character development. I love the world building, and I'm going to be sticking with this. So if you like The Witcher, if you like that kind of story, and I recommend it. It's a great read. Next, we have a book that everyone's heard of, The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells, and Rommel Madre read this for us. Yes, this is the book, the one that was made into a 2005 movie with Tom Cruise. And this particular edition includes a free chapter from The Map of the Sky by New York Times bestselling author Felix J. Palma. And that story features H.G. Wells as a time-traveling investigator in Victorian London. So you might want to pick up this book just for that chapter. So Rommel says that he prefers the book to the Tom Cruise movie. And in this story, for those who don't know, people are too self-absorbed to believe in aliens, even after respected astronomers admit the possibility that they exist. And then a cylindrical object crashes down near Woking, England. Nobody can open it, and a crowd gathers around it. And our narrator is there, but goes home for tea. And then when he comes back, a Martian emerges from the cylinder. The Martian has a look around, ducks back inside the cylinder, and blasts everyone with the cylinder's heat ray. And luckily, our narrator manages to escape by doing a runner. And so Rommel says that despite being an older novel, the prose, plot, and dialogue do make it an excellent read. So if you haven't read this book yet, why haven't you? Go read it. It's a classic. All right. Next we have The Coordinate by Marc Jacobs, the first of 3 books in the Coordinate science fiction adventure series. It's billed as Stargate meets National Treasure. The other books are $5 to $6 each, and the entire series is in Kindle Unlimited. And Rommel, you read this book. What did you think? I mean, Terrence, you read this book. Okay, I call my own kids by the wrong names. So it's not just you, it's me. But moving on.
So I
Worse
guess I'm
yet,
wrong today.
I call them by my dog's name.
Oh boy.
I do love my dog. Yeah. Anyway, no, it's not true. My dog's a beagle. He's the worst dog. All he does is howl all night. Anyway, The Coordinate by Marc Jacobs. What did you think?
Well, I think that overall, this is a pretty okay story. The 2 main themes are pretty generic. It's this this teenage guy named Logan and this girl named Emma, who were best friends when they were younger, but drifted apart. And of course, he has a crush on her, but she's dating the high school football star, who coincidentally is named Chad, and that's become a bit of a meme to describe buff airheads that are full of themselves. And basically, what happens is they get paired in a history class assignment where they have to research recently discovered archaeological finds that's in this Mayan temple in Honduras. And basically, this goes where you're probably guessing it's going. It's basically one of those, I'm not saying it's aliens, but it's aliens kind of stories. So, where it's talking about ancient civilizations and seemingly impossible archaeological feats, and archaeologists don't yet know how they were able to pull this stuff off. And one thing that the book does, which I think is cool, is that the author takes advantage of the ebook format, where in the story are clickable links to this fake website called aliens and ghost hunters.com, which is basically the website that one of the characters looks at and the book itself. So it has an augmented reality element to the story, so that the people reading can play along themselves. And would I recommend this story personally? If you can put up with the generic characters, yeah. I mean, would I continue to read this? Maybe, just because of the the augmented reality aspect, and of course, aliens.
Okay, so do you plan to continue reading it?
Me personally, possibly.
Because you do like conspiracies and aliens, right?
Yeah. Uh, yeah, I bet Fox Mulder would be all over this one. Like, if you want to turn your teenage kid into the next Fox Mulder, have them read this story.
Or you could just have them watch X-Files.
Yes.
That's probably going to be quicker. All right, and the link to that is in the article that that we are that we posted earlier today. The link to which is in the description box below. But I'll also add the link to the aliens and ghost hunters in the description box below as well. You can't just type in aliens and ghost hunters. You have to type in www. And then it seems to go to the author's website instead. I think the site itself is down. So that's disappointing. All right. Okay, let's go back to the books. So that was book 6. So now we're up at book number 5, which is A Hunt by Moonlight. Hold on, let me show that to you. Okay, let's make it bigger. Okay, here we go. A Hunt by Moonlight by Shawna Reppert, the first of 3 books in the Werewolves and Gaslight Paranormal Mystery series set in Victorian London. The other books are on sale for 99 cents each today, and all the books are in Kindle Unlimited. So this feels like an old-fashioned Jack the Ripper kind of mystery. Inspector Royston Jones is examining the mutilated body of a shop girl. He's convinced that it's a normal human predator, not a werewolf, because there's werewolves in this world. And he's convinced that it's not this guy named Blackpool, also known as the Lady Killer, back from the dead, because Blackpool is dead. So it's not him. For one thing, the cuts are clean, made with a sharp knife, and by a killer with some knowledge of anatomy. So he doesn't think it's a werewolf gone berserk. The writing style is very comfortably old-fashioned, but not in a way that makes it hard to read. So nice balance of the two. So Royston investigates. He's trying to find a connection between several young women have been killed recently in a similar way. All of them were new to the city, but otherwise there's no obvious connection between them. He talks to the shop girl's roommate. He talks to the owner of the shop. The dead girl didn't have any enemies. She was friendly with everybody. And then he visits his mentor, Godwin, who's been shot in the kneecap by a bank robber back when Royston was still a constable. They talk about the werewolves. And then in the next chapter, we switch to the point of view of one of the werewolves, Richard Bandon, who's getting ready to marry an eccentric, outspoken lady who practices alchemy and apparently works on cars in her spare time because the horseless carriage has just been invented. What makes this relationship particularly fraught with peril is that Richard is a werewolf, and it's illegal for him to marry someone who is not themselves a werewolf. But the lady has a secret of her own, the secret that brought them together, and we don't find out the secret though until later. So we go back to Royston's investigation. I do like the writing style very much. I'm enjoying the setting, and I think I might stick with this book as well. It feels like a very old-fashioned, comfortable kind of mystery, and I'm enjoying it. Okay, next we have Autumn Dawn by David Moody, the first of 3 books in Autumn, the London Trilogy series. The other books are $6 each, and they're not in Kindle Unlimited. The series is set in the same universe as the author's 6-book Autumn series, which was billed as War of the Worlds meets Night of the Living Dead. And the first book in that series was made into a movie, Autumn, starring David Carradine. I've never heard of that movie, but apparently It wasn't great. So Alex KOROLOV read this, and he says that the book isn't his favorite either, although he's normally a big fan of zombie stories. He says the story is told in the first person by Helen, who wakes up, who walks down the busy streets of London when suddenly everyone drops dead, pretty much without any warning. Helen is totally alone for 3 days, unable to reach anyone on the phone, and then the dead start coming back to life, slowly peeling themselves up off the ground. And then she starts killing them as she's wandering around London. The zombies aren't trying to eat her. They just follow her around. So he's kind of disturbed by that. Like, why is she just killing them for no reason? And then she does something pretty dumb that gets her seriously wounded, which is not the zombie's fault. But then she finally meets another normal human. So that's how far he got, he says. He doesn't plan to keep on reading because of the wanton killing of poor zombies without any real need to do it. And so he doesn't really sympathize with her. I think that's the first time I've heard him say that about a zombie book, that he doesn't plan to keep reading. All right. Next, we have a book that I read, The Glass Gargoyle by Marie Andreas, and I love this book. So this is the first of 6 books in the Lost Ancients fantasy adventure series. The other books are $5 each, but they're all in Kindle Unlimited. And the series is billed as Tomb Raider's Lara Croft meets Janet Ivanovich's Stephanie Plum in Tolkien's Middle-earth, which are all 3 things that I love. And so, which reminds me, I looked up the Stephanie Plum series so I can link to it, and a new book came out in November that I missed. So, yay! And the local library has it on the Overdrive app. Yay! If you don't know, Overdrive has an app that you can download, and if you have a library account, which everybody should, I mean, who doesn't have a library card? You can use it to log into Overdrive and read a whole bunch of books for free. They usually have a lot of the bestsellers, although sometimes you might have to wait a while for a copy to open up for you. So highly recommend it if you're a fan of free books. I mean, you've already paid for the library with your taxes. Might as well get some free books out of it. Okay, so the protagonist, his name is Terrence, and she's a bounty hunter, not by choice, but by necessity, because her archaeological work has dried up and she takes what assignments she can get. And the setting is a fantasy setting. I personally find it to be less Tolkien and more like Terry Pratchett's Ankh-Morpork, which is like my favorite city in the entire universe. If I had to have a fictional virtual house somewhere, I would want it to be there. So the setting feels very full and real. I love Terrence's friends. I love the job she got from a local crime lord to bring back a guy who turns out to be super troublesome and possibly a mage, and all sorts of antics and hilarious escapades ensue. And all the banter and hijinks definitely remind me of Stephanie Plum. I will definitely finish the book this weekend. This has gone right to the top of my list. And I'm going to be reading the rest of the book in the series as well. And I also noted that the author has a space opera series. And if she writes that in the same style as this, I am going to be reading that book as well. And listen to the description of that. Vaslisha Tordain is a mercenary starship captain with a few simple rules. A good ship is better than a great man. In the case of confusion, always err on the side of blowing someone's head off, and never fall for a telepath or a member of her crew. That is great. I love that. That's going to be my motto to live by as well. So I'm really looking forward to reading all the books by this author. Okay, next, for something completely different, A Lesson in Thorns by Sierra Simone, the first of 4 books in the Thorn Chapel bisexual fantasy romance series by a USA Today bestselling author. The other books are $6 to $7 each, and they're not in Kindle Unlimited. If you like this sort of thing, definitely pick it up. This is kind of like Shades of Grey but extremely well written. I mean, it's very, very literary, lyrical writing. I'm not the target audience for this book. I tried really hard to get anybody else to take it. But it's supposed to be super, super steamy and have lots of S&M in it. And there's apparently multiple sex partners and all the usual things. So there's a prologue that's set 12 years in the past where 6 kids are staying at this house called Thorn Chapel. And there's a giant maze outside the house and a strange tunnel in the center. And the 6 kids play outside, go into the maze, and find a chapel. Only the walls are thorns and the floor is grass. And instead of an altar, there's a grassy hummock. And they have a pretend wedding. And 3 of the kids wind up sharing a kiss when a thunderstorm breaks out and they run back to the house. Then their parents went their separate ways, and so did all the kids. So very, very lyrical, literary writing, just gorgeous. So about as far from Shades of Grey as you can get. So if you like the idea of that book, but hated the writing style, this is the book for you. And then the book officially begins with chapter 1, 12 years later, from the point of view of Proserpina, one of the girls who had been playing at the chapel. And she's the one who ended up kissing the 2 boys at the altar. She's now 22, a university librarian in Kansas City, but she got a job offer for a job at Thorn Chapel, and she immediately drops everything and heads over to England because the job offer letter was written in handwriting that she recognized, handwriting that belonged to her mother who disappeared 12 years ago. And her father had hired detectives, and nobody's been able to find her mother. So she heads straight there, and then when she gets there, she discovers that Auden, who's now owner of the house, is renovating it, and all the other kids are there as well, and there's tons of sexual tension in the air, and Auden is engaged to one of the other girls, so lots of drama, and kind of a feeling of magical foreboding and mystical stuff happening. And I'm not going to keep reading. Like I said, this is not my kind of book, but based on the reviews and the comments about it, it gets hot and steamy. And like I said, the writing is fantastic. So if you like that kind of thing, definitely check it out. And before we
Better
go,
love story than Twilight.
yeah. Well, pretty much anything is. So before we go on to the number 1 book on today's list, I want to mention that we have an anthology out for year 1 of MetaStellar. And we have it available in paperback as well from all the major bookstores. And you can also get it in electronic form. The link is down below. And we're supported by our Patreon contributors. Every story that we publish is free. All the money that's donated goes to pay the authors. So, we love you guys. MetaStellar would not exist without you. The entire editorial team is volunteer. So please join us as a volunteer, as a book reviewer. We've got a million other things that we're working on at MetaStellar. We're the fastest growing science fiction and fantasy publication on the planet. And it looks like we're in the top 10 by traffic numbers right now. So that's pretty exciting. Thanks to you guys. So thank you so much for reading. Thank you for supporting us. Thank you for buying the book. You guys are awesome. And if you don't want to miss any of these free Fridays, because you want to get free books every Friday, so you have something to read for the weekend, you can subscribe to our channel, or you can also sign up for our newsletter. So you get a newsletter in the mail every Friday afternoon at 5 p.m. Eastern Time with all the books in it, plus original fiction and reprints that we published that week, and essays and articles and other stuff that we publish at MetaStellar. And if you want to join us, like I said, we're always looking for volunteers and contributors. All right, now let's move on to today's number 1 book. Here we go. Space Colony 1 by J.J. Green, a box set of the first 3 of 8 books in the Space Colony 1 space opera series. The other books are $3 to $5 each, and they are not in Kindle Unlimited, so you'll have to pay for them. So this is a great deal because you get 3 books for the price of 0. This is the second time this book has been on our list. We previously reviewed it in December of 2021, and it was on the #1 spot then as well. People love this book. And I was expecting to love this book too, because I love hard sci-fi. It's my sweet spot. That's what got me hooked on speculative fiction when I was a kid. I'm definitely the target audience. I love the cover. I love any book cover with a spaceship on it. And so the story is about Cariad, who's been cryogenically frozen for a 184-year trip to a new planet. And she's a gestation specialist. She grows fetuses in artificial wombs. And but there's also other colonists who've been awake for the whole trip, part of the ship crew, and there have been several generations of them. So it's a combination of you're asleep for the whole trip and generation ship, where people live and die on the ship as well. So it's a very cool premise. And the first night on the planet, they're attacked by the local wildlife. And then there's a political speech where they talk about the name that the colonists chose for the new planet, and there's an explosion, and Cariad is almost killed. So the twist is that there's another ship of humans on the planet, and they left centuries after Cariad's ship did. And they came to warn the colonists about a plot to sabotage the colony. So I was concerned about the plot. I mean, if they're warning the colonists, why not just send them a radio signal? You know, they're awake on the ship. They would have got the message. So, or send them a drone or something with a message. And then the newcomers refuse to say anything about what's been happening on Earth since the original colonists left. Again, they don't get radio signals. Why haven't they been keeping up with the news from home? And then the other thing that bothers me, and this bothers me with a lot of these books, but it's a common trope in science fiction, is that the colonists are all allocated plots of land to farm, and they plan to do old-fashioned style family farming. So it seems kind of ridiculous to waste people from a high-tech civilization on manual farming jobs. You know, like today on Earth, very few people live as farmers and do manual farming unless they want to as a hobby. So you'd think that far in the future, even fewer people would be working as farmers, and we'd all have other jobs that are more fun, because many people do not actually enjoy farming. It's grueling, backbreaking work, and it's boring for, unless you're really into that kind of thing. So I have a problem with all of this. I mean, why do that? But it's a really common trope in science fiction. So I guess, what are you going to do? But even if I could get past that issue, I wasn't really caught up with the characters. So if I had nothing else to read, I might stick with this book and hope it gets better. But since I have a lot of books on my plate right now that were fun from the very first chapter, it's far down on my reading list. But if that sounds like a cool book for you, pick it up. Like I said, a lot of people love it. It's a #1 book for a reason. It's been #1 book before as well. So check it out. All right. And I think that covers it for today. So Terrence, I'm going to see you next week. Same time, same YouTube channel.
Same time, same Bat Network.
Yep. And again, if anybody wants to join us here at MetaStellar, all our contact information is in the description box below. See you next week, everybody. Bye-bye.